Narcissists tremble with fear when they face one specific type of person. It's not someone physically stronger, wealthier, or more influential. It's someone who possesses something far more powerful: indestructible authenticity and emotional independence. It's a super empath. If you've ever seen a confident narcissist suddenly break down, fall silent, or flee from a conversation for no apparent reason, they were probably in the presence of a super empath. This person wasn't doing anything special. They were simply being themselves. And for a narcissist, that's enough to feel their artificial world beginning to crumble. Freud spoke about how our greatest fears often come from confronting the truth about ourselves. Narcissists live in a world of lies that they feed to themselves and others. But a super empath, they're a living truth detector who cannot be deceived. Today, you'll discover why only a super empath can destroy the narcissistic ego, and how they do it effortlessly. Prepare yourself for a truth that will change everything. A super empath is not just an ordinary, empathetic person. They're someone who has been through emotional hell, healed their wounds, and emerged from the other side stronger, wiser, and indestructible. They're a true warrior of the spirit who has passed through fire and become a diamond. Imagine a person who has gone through life's most difficult experiences: childhood trauma, toxic relationships, psychological manipulation, betrayal by loved. But instead of breaking down, they use that pain for growth. It's like steel tempered in hellish fire. Every attempt to break them only makes them stronger. Every attack only increases their resilience. A super empath has something a narcissist will never have: true inner strength. Not the kind of strength that comes from dominating others, but the kind that's born from deep inner work. It's strength that doesn't need external validation because it knows where it comes from. A super empath recognizes manipulation from a mile away. They see through the masks that others wear. They feel the energy of lies before they leave someone's lips. They hear falseness in every tone of voice, see hypocrisy in every gesture. This isn't paranoia, it's intuition sharpened by years of experience with toxic people. Freud wrote about how true strength lies in self-awareness. A super empath has achieved what a narcissist never will: true self-knowledge. They know their strengths and weaknesses, accept their imperfections, but don't allow anyone to use them against them. They don't need external validation because they know who they are. They don't seek approval because they have their own. They don't fear rejection because they love themselves unconditionally. It's precisely this inner completeness that most terrifies the narcissist. But the most terrifying trait of a super empath for a narcissist is that they reflect like a mirror all the hidden dark sides of their personality. When a narcissist looks at a super empath, they see everything they don't accept about themselves, and this truth is unbearable. What city are you watching us from? Because what you're about to hear will change your perspective on every toxic person in your life. Prepare for a transformation that will change your relationships forever. A super empath emanates a special energy, a frequency of truth and authenticity. This isn't anything esoteric or mystical. It's simply the result of deep inner work, emotional stability, and living in alignment with one's own values. Every person has their own energetic signature, the way they affect the space around them. A narcissist lives in a world of theater, where every day they play different roles, wear different masks, pretend to be someone they're not. This artificiality is perceptible to sensitive people. It's exhausting and requires enormous energy to maintain the facade. But when a super empath appears, this facade begins to crack like an eggshell. Why? Because a super empath doesn't play games. They don't need to pretend, manipulate, or control. They're simply themselves, authentic, calm, self-assured. And this authenticity acts like kryptonite on the narcissistic ego. Freud spoke about defense mechanisms that people use to protect their fragile egos. A narcissist has an entire army of them: projection, denial, rationalization, sublimation, repression. Their psyche is a true battlefield where different parts of their personality fight each other for dominance. But a super empath, they don't need defense mechanisms because they have nothing to hide. Their psyche is integrated, calm, stable. It's like the difference between a turbulent sea and a peaceful lake. The narcissist is a storm. The super empath is deep stillness. When a narcissist tries their standard manipulation on a super empath, gaslighting, blame, emotional drama, blackmail, they hit a wall. Not a wall of aggression or defense, but a wall of calm and self-assurance. The super empath doesn't react emotionally, doesn't get provoked, doesn't enter the games. They simply observe with calm, like a child watching an adult throwing a tantrum. This reaction, or rather lack thereof, is a true nightmare for the narcissist, because it means all their tools are useless. All the tricks that worked on others simply don't function here. And then the narcissist begins to panic, because for the first time in their life, they feel powerless. For a narcissist, a super empath is the worst possible opponent, because they're the only person who can't be broken by standard methods. A narcissist feeds on drama, emotional chaos, and other people's reactions. It's their existential fuel, their psychological oxygen. Imagine a vampire who has fed on blood their entire life and suddenly encounters someone who has no blood to give, or a manipulator who has used the same tricks for decades and suddenly faces someone on whom none of them work. That's exactly what a narcissist feels in the presence of a super empath. But a super empath doesn't provide that fuel. When a narcissist tries to provoke anger, the super empath remains calm as a lake's surface. When they try to induce guilt, the super empath knows it's manipulation and doesn't take it on themselves. When they try to intimidate, the super empath feels no fear because they know who this person really is behind the mask. Freud wrote about narcissism as a disorder that stems from deep insecurity. A narcissist builds a false ego like a house of cards, impressive from the outside, but fragile inside. Any gust of wind can destroy it. And a super empath is a hurricane of truth. The worst thing for a narcissist is that the super empath doesn't try to fix, change, or save them. They don't take on the role of savior, mother, therapist, or teacher, which empathetic people often do. A super empath simply sets boundaries and sticks to them like rocks. This behavior sends the narcissist into panic because it means losing control. And control is all the narcissist has. Without it, they're just a scared, insecure child in an adult's body. A child who never learned how to be loved without manipulation. When the narcissist realizes that their standard arsenal of manipulation doesn't work, that their dramas are ignored, that their threats are powerless, the real war begins. But it's a war they can't win because they're fighting someone who already won it long ago, with themselves. And in this desperation, the narcissist shows their true face, the face of fear, insecurity, and deep loneliness. A super empath is a living lie detector, a walking lie detector, as Americans say. Years of experience with manipulators, toxic people, and their own traumas have taught them to recognize falsehood in every form. This isn't paranoia or suspicion, it's intuition, sharpened by pain and experience. It's not just about obvious lies that anyone can recognize. A super empath senses inconsistencies in behavior, false emotions, hidden intentions, double meanings in every statement. They see micro-expressions that betray true feelings. They hear tones of voice that don't match the words. They feel the energy of hypocrisy before it even leaves someone's lips. It's like having an X-ray that penetrates human souls. A super empath sees not only what someone says, but also what they don't say. Not only what they do, but also why they do it. Not only the mask, but also the face beneath it. Freud spoke about the unconscious and how our true motivations are often hidden from ourselves. Most people live unaware of their true intentions, but a super empath has access to this unconscious knowledge, their own and others. It's like having a key to the secret rooms of the human psyche. When a narcissist tells their stories, presenting themselves as a victim or hero, the super empath hears the real story between the lines. They know where the narcissist distorts facts, where they add drama, where they omit inconvenient details. They know when they're lying, when they're manipulating, when they're trying to exert emotional pressure. They don't need to confront or expose, they simply know. And this knowledge is terrifying for someone who lives in a world of lies. It's like being naked before someone who has a full wardrobe. The narcissist feels naked before the super empath. All their secrets, all their manipulations, all their hidden motives are like an open book. Every mask is torn off with a single glance. Every maneuver is anticipated. Every game is seen right through. There's nowhere to hide. No way to pretend, no way to deceive. It's like trying to cheat a professional poker player while playing with open cards. And the worst part, the super empath doesn't use this knowledge against them. They don't blackmail, attack, humiliate, or reveal their secrets. They simply know. And this indifference is worse for the narcissist than an attack, because it means they're not important enough to care about. This is the moment when a narcissist feels truly insignificant for the first time, and this awareness kills them. A super empath has one thing a narcissist will never understand: unbreachable boundaries. These aren't paper boundaries that can be crossed through manipulation, emotional blackmail, or pressure. These aren't suggestions or requests. These are boundaries forged in steel, built from experience and reinforced by wisdom gained through suffering. These boundaries were born in pain. Each one is a lesson the super empath paid for with their own emotional blood. Each one is a consequence of allowing someone to cross a line they should never have crossed. Each one is a scar that healed and became stronger than the original skin. When a super empath says no, it means exactly that, no. Without negotiation, without exceptions, without the possibility of persuasion. It's not an invitation to discussion. It's not the beginning of a bargain. It's not an area for exploration. It's a final, irrevocable decision. Freud wrote about how psychological stability requires clear boundaries between self and others. Most people have boundaries like a chain link fence. You can see them, but they're easy to cross. A narcissist never learned these boundaries. They neither respect others' boundaries nor have their own healthy boundaries. For them, every boundary is a challenge. Every no is the beginning of a war they must win. But a super empath has boundaries like the Berlin Wall during the Cold War. Not only high and thick, but also guarded by sentries who never sleep. These sentries are their experience, intuition, self-awareness, and unwavering determination to protect their peace. For a narcissist, a super empath's boundaries are like a concrete wall 10 meters high, with barbed wire on top and a moat full of crocodiles below. They can try to break through it with a hammer, go around it, tunnel under it, pole vault over it. Nothing works. And every attempt to cross these boundaries ends the same way: complete cutoff, immediate, ruthless, final. The super empath doesn't explain why they act this way. They don't convince why they're right. They don't fight for their boundaries because they don't have to. They simply execute them in practice like a court sentence. Narcissist crossed the line, conversation over. Without warning, without a second chance. Narcissist tries to manipulate, contact severed, immediately and permanently. Narcissist doesn't respect decisions, access blocked forever, without possibility of appeal. This consistency in action is something the narcissist can't understand. In their world, everything is negotiable. Everything can be changed through the right pressure, the right blackmail, the right manipulation. They always found a way to bypass others' boundaries, emotionally bribe them, break their will. But not with a super empath. Their boundaries are like laws of physics, unbreachable, unchangeable, unbending. And this drives them to madness because for the first time in their life, they encounter someone who ignores them completely and irreversibly. But this is just the beginning of their agony, because a super empath has other weapons in their arsenal. The silence of a super empath is not passive aggression or childish anger. It's a strategic weapon, precise as a surgeon's scalpel, silent as death, and effective as poison. When a narcissist expects drama, reaction, emotional chaos, word games, they receive absolute silence. And this silence kills them slowly, systematically, relentlessly. This silence is not empty or accidental. It's full of power, self-confidence, and unwavering calm. Every second of this silence is a conscious decision. The super empath doesn't remain silent because they have nothing to say. They have plenty to say. They remain silent because they know their words would be wasted on someone who doesn't listen, doesn't understand, doesn't respect. They remain silent because they understood something fundamental. The narcissist doesn't deserve their energy, their time, their attention, their words. This isn't punishment or revenge. It's simply a practical economic decision. You don't invest in unprofitable ventures. Freud analyzed the mechanisms of transference and countertransference in interpersonal relationships. A narcissist functions like an emotional vampire. They try to provoke specific reactions to confirm their worldview and gain control over the situation. They need drama like an addict needs drugs, like an alcoholic needs alcohol. Without it, they can't function. But a super empath doesn't enter these games. They don't give them what they need. They don't feed the beast that lives on conflict. Their silence is a mirror that reflects all the narcissist's toxicity back to them. Every attempt at manipulation, every accusation, every emotional attack, every attempt to induce guilt, everything returns to the sender like a boomerang. The super empath doesn't take it on themselves, doesn't absorb this poison, doesn't allow it to contaminate their interior. This silence is louder than screaming, stronger than attack, more painful than punishment. It says without words, "You're not important enough to waste words on." It says, "Your dramas are your problem, not mine." It says, "I see right through you, and there's nothing in you that would interest or frighten me." For a narcissist who feeds on attention like a vampire, on blood, this silence is death by starvation. Every second of silence is 1 second less life for their false ego. Every minute without reaction is 1 minute closer to the collapse of their artificial world. But the worst part is that this silence isn't full of hatred, anger, or desire for revenge. It's calm, indifferent, almost pitying, as if the super empath were looking at a spoiled child throwing a tantrum in a store, knowing they'll tire out and stop in a moment. And this indifference is the worst possible punishment for the narcissist, because it means they've ceased to be important. And for someone who built their entire identity on being the center of attention, this is the end of the world. A super empath acts like a perfect psychological mirror that reflects truth without distortion. Everything the narcissist tries to throw at them, guilt, shame, anger, fear, frustration, despair, bounces off them like light off a mirror and returns straight to them with doubled force. This reflection mechanism is not a conscious strategy or learned technique. It's a natural reaction of someone who has processed their traumas, healed their wounds, and knows what belongs to them and what doesn't. When a narcissist tries to dump responsibility for their emotions, their choices, their problems on them, the super empath simply doesn't accept this package. It remains on the ground, unwanted by anyone. It's like trying to throw garbage into a container with a plexiglass lid. Everything bounces off and falls back on the person who tried to throw it away. Freud wrote about projection as a defense mechanism by which people unconsciously dump their unwanted traits, emotions, and responsibilities on others. A narcissist lives by projection. Everything bad in their life is someone else's fault. All their failures are the result of conspiracies against them. All their problems are consequences of someone's malice. But a super empath has a mirror-like quality that makes projection return to the sender like an echo in the mountains. They don't accept others' guilt, don't take others' problems, don't take responsibility for others' choices. When a narcissist screams, "You make me angry," the super empath hears, "I can't handle my own anger, and I'm looking for someone to dump it on." When a narcissist says, "You hurt me," the super empath understands, "I'm so emotionally fragile that your indifference causes me pain." When a narcissist accuses, "You're toxic," the super empath sees, "I can't accept that I'm the source of toxicity in this relationship." This reflection of truth happens automatically, without effort, without emotional involvement. The super empath doesn't need to defend themselves, explain, apologize, or prove their innocence. They simply allow the narcissist to see their own reflection in the mirror of their soul. And this sight terrifies them because for the first time in their life, the narcissist sees themselves as they really are. A scared, insecure, desperate child in an adult's body. A child who never learned to take responsibility for their actions. And there's nowhere left to run from this truth, because the mirror is relentless. It always shows what is, not what we'd like to see. A super empath carries within them what Freud would call primal life energy, the energy of truth, authenticity, and integrity. This isn't anything mystical or esoteric. It's simply the result of living in alignment with one's own values, emotions, beliefs, and boundaries. It's the energy of someone who doesn't need to pretend to be someone else. A narcissist, on the other hand, lives in constant internal conflict. Their energy is scattered between maintaining different masks, remembering different lies, controlling different versions of themselves for different people. It's like trying to play 10 instruments simultaneously. Possible, but exhausting and unstable. Their energy is chaos, fragmentation, inconsistency. They have to remember who they told what role they play in front of whom, what version of their story they presented in different situations. It's like trying to maintain 10 different identities simultaneously. It requires enormous effort and always threatens to collapse. When these two energies meet, truth and lies, integrity and fragmentation, authenticity and artificiality, the result is always the same. Truth wins without a fight, not because it's louder or more aggressive, because it's coherent, stable, and doesn't require effort to maintain. A super empath doesn't need to pretend to be someone else. They don't need to remember different versions of their personality. They don't need to worry about consistency in their words and actions. They're simply themselves, always, everywhere, with everyone. The same person at home, at work, with friends, with strangers. This inner coherence is unbearable for the narcissist. It reminds them of what they never had, authentic identity. It shows them how scattered, fragmented, inconsistent they are. It's like comparing granite rock to a house of cards. Freud spoke about how true psychological health means integrating different parts of personality into one whole. A super empath achieved this through years of hard work on themselves. A narcissist doesn't even know where to start because they don't know who they really are under all the masks. Every moment in the presence of a super empath is a painful reminder for the narcissist of who they could be if they hadn't chosen the path of lies and manipulation. It's like showing a blind person a sunset. They know they're missing something, but they can't see it. The energy of the super empath's truth acts like a solvent on the narcissist's empire of lies. All their mental constructions begin to fall apart in their presence. All the myths they created about themselves lose meaning. All the roles they play become transparent, and this awareness tears them apart from the inside because it means their entire life has been one big farce. When a narcissist first meets a true super empath, they go through several characteristic phases like a patient with a terminal illness. First, denial. They try their standard tricks, charm, manipulation, control. They think it's just a matter of time before they break their resistance, as they did with everyone else. When this doesn't work, they enter the anger phase. They intensify their efforts. They try heavier artillery, rage, emotional blackmail, threats, ultimatums. They think they can intimidate or tire them out with their attacks, but the super empath remains untouched like a rock in the sea. Then comes the bargaining phase. They try to negotiate, promise changes, play the victim, seek sympathy. They might even start therapy or read self-help books, but only to find new manipulation tools. But the super empath doesn't react, doesn't engage, doesn't give them what they need. Drama, attention, emotional chaos. They don't throw them a lifeline, don't try to save them, don't take on the role of mother or therapist. At this moment, something begins to break in the narcissist at a fundamental level. For the first time in their life, they encounter someone who completely ignores them, someone who sees right through them and isn't interested in what they see, someone who has better things to do than deal with their artificial dramas. Freud wrote about narcissism as a disorder that has its roots in earliest childhood. A narcissist is essentially a child who never received unconditional love and acceptance. They always had to pretend something to be loved, be good, achieve success, be perfect. And now, faced with a truly unconditionally self-loving person, they feel like a child who never grew up emotionally. A super empath represents everything the narcissist never had: true self-love, authenticity, emotional stability, inner peace. It's like showing a person dying of thirst pure, fresh water, but in a form they can't reach. The worst thing for the narcissist is that the super empath doesn't try to save or fix them. They don't take on the role of mother, therapist, or savior. They don't try to understand them, explain their behavior, or find excuses for their toxicity. They simply live their life, ignoring their existence like an unpleasant smell that will quickly dissipate. And for someone who built their entire identity on others' attention, on people's reactions, on being the center of the universe, this indifference is psychological death. It's a worse punishment than hatred, because hatred is also a form of attention. The narcissistic ego begins to fall apart piece by piece, like an old building during an earthquake. All masks fall uselessly to the ground. All lies cease to make sense. All manipulations prove useless against someone who ignores them. The structures of their false self creak like ice on a lake during a thaw. Every attempt at reconstruction encounters the same indifferent force. Total lack of interest from the super empath. And at this moment, the narcissist faces an existential choice. Either finally look within themselves and begin real, painful work on themselves, or find a new victim, a new stage, a new theater where they can continue playing their pathetic role. Unfortunately, most choose the latter, because the truth about themselves is too painful to bear. It's easier to find someone weaker, more wounded, less aware, whom they can parasitize. But for those few who have the courage to look in the mirror that the super empath shows them, there is hope for true transformation, for leaving the world of lies and entering the reality of authenticity. Freud believed that every person has within them the potential for change, for healing, for becoming a complete, authentic person. But this path requires courage, honesty with oneself, and perseverance in confronting one's own demons. A super empath has already walked this path. They went through the hell of their own traumas, faced their own darkness, worked through their fears, and emerged on the other side as a complete, integrated person. Now they stand as living proof that one can be happy without manipulating others, strong without hurting the weak, loved without pretending to be someone else. They're like a signpost showing the way to authentic living. They don't force anyone to follow this path, don't convince, don't convert. They simply are, as a possibility, as an alternative, as hope, and for the narcissist, this awareness is either the beginning of the end of their false ego or motivation to find new, easier victims. But one thing is absolutely certain: they will never be the same again after meeting a true super empath. Because truth, once seen, remains somewhere in the subconscious, like a seed that might someday sprout. Or it might be trampled by fear of change. A super empath shows the narcissist who they could be if they had the courage to be real. It's like showing a prisoner an open door. They can walk through it, but they must first remove the shackles they put on themselves. The ultimate destruction of the narcissistic ego by a super empath is not a war or battle. It's simply the presence of truth before lies, light before darkness, reality before illusion. And as always in such confrontations, truth wins, not through aggression, but through its very essence. Remember, you too can become a super empath. It's not a talent or gift you receive at birth. It's a choice you make every day, a choice to work on yourself, heal your wounds, set healthy boundaries, and live in alignment with your values. It's a difficult path, often painful, but leading to true freedom. Freedom from others' manipulation, from their dramas, from their toxicity. Freedom to be yourself, complete, authentic, integrated. And when you do this, the narcissists in your life will either leave on their own, scared by your newly acquired strength, or they'll finally have to face who they really are, and then it will be revealed whether they're ready for true transformation or prefer to remain in their world of lies. But that won't be your problem anymore, because you will be free.